Hello, everyone. This is my capstone presentation. Some of you know from reading my papers and stuff, it is on Afghanistan and about the lessons learned from America's intervention there. I served in Afghanistan between 2011 and 2012 at the tail end of the surge. And while I was there for the year, I spent about 6 of those months working, managing $10 million worth of contracts, $5 million on a rapid scan machine that was installed at the Torkham Gate to stop the flow of weapons into the country. At the end of approximately 6 months of installing it and working it, we finally got it up and running. And within a month or two of it being set up, the Taliban used a bomb that cost them approximately $200 to blow up the $5 million that we had invested in the security apparatus. So, as I've advanced in my life and career, I've reflected on some of those and lessons learned about maybe working smarter instead of harder. And as I was working towards my capstone, I thought about tying human security to physical security. And so that's kind of what the overall thesis or premise of my capstone was. If you look on slide 3, you can see a chart that's got physical security statistics for Afghanistan, and you can see from 2007 to 2016, and you'll see that in between 2010 and 2011, and then it starts dropping down in 2012 due to the surge, but then it spikes back up again in 13, 14, 15, and then kind of drops a little bit in 2016, but not really that much. So it demonstrates that a surge in security can provide an immediate impact, but it doesn't do anything for the long term, because once you retract those surged forces, it doesn't help anything. So the overall sentiment is, if you address the human security aspects, then the physical security will eventually come along with it. So when you look at Afghanistan's human security as a whole, using the Millennium Development Goals as the metrics, they are very low across all of the categories, but primarily Millennium Development Goal 1, the eradication of extreme poverty and hunger. 50% of Afghanistan's rural population is classified as extremely poor, and 5% of the children there are extremely malnourished, and then 48% are malnourished, and then they have vitamin deficiencies and things that affect stunting and cognitive development. Some of them have had blindness issues, and so it's just an overall issue for them growing up to be productive adults. The next one is to reduce our Millennium Development Goal 4, which is the reduction of child mortality rates. They have the highest child mortality rate in the world, and then approximately 25% of children don't live past age 5. So even if they don't die in the first 12 months, they don't have a very long life expectancy. And then additionally with that, their mother, and Millennium Development Goal 5, improving maternal health, is also bad. They're ranked 12th in the world on that. And then the final Millennium Development Goal that is semi-addressed is the universal primary education, and them having the education to build the future for the country. Literacy rate in the country is 38%, but the gender discrepancy on that is very high, because only 24% of women can read, with a 52% for men. So for any program or thing to be successful when working outside of your country, or really in any country, is that you have to have the buy-in of the local population. You not necessarily give them what they want, but they have to want what you're offering to build for the future. So Asia Foundation has done a lot of studies and polling over the last few years. Then they have on slide 5 here a really great amount of data, polls from 2006 to 2014, and they asked the general population what they saw as the primary challenges facing the country. And it's, lack of education, lack of job opportunities, domestic violence, forced marriages, lack of rights, poverty, pregnancy-related healthcare, general healthcare, and so on and so forth. So I took all of those statistics and kind of broke them down into three major categories, which can now be seen kind of on six, and it's lack of literacy or lack of education and literacy, lack of jobs, and then lack of rights. And then if you see the other category here, domestic violence and forced marriages, that can all be kind of folded into the lack of rights. So building off of that, I created a 3-tier program that could be used to address these human security issues. The first program is a legal program that talks about improving with human rights really across the board, but at all echelons. A lot of times the programs don't address all of the different levels. They think that you can just teach women rights and then everything works out fine. But the issue in Afghanistan is that the rights have issues across the board. So the tiers that I created were legislative advocacy, so that new laws are created to protect women, because there are a lot of loopholes and shortages in the law there. The second one is judicial training with religious partnership. The Afghan legal system is structured through Sharia law. And so for legislative stuff to happen, they have to have the buy-in of moderate Muslim leaders to try and make that legislation go through, so it doesn't seem un-Islamic. And then the judicial training to make sure that judges know what the laws are, because in some cases they are not properly trained in the legal system. Then police training, so that way the police know what the laws are to enforce them. And then finally, the training for the women. The program was to try and, for educating the women, was to use a radio program broadcast, because that's something that can be mass distributed to the population. And I have a radio here that I was looking for distribution. It costs about $30. It is solar powered, hand crank power, and battery powered, so you can actually see